Welcome to Diskogs Presents. Here we are at the beach. Very excited for this 10th episode spectacular. We have a very special guest today. Meet Joseph. He'll be talking with us about the Beach Boys. The three of us are just a trio of Beach Boys, and we all love the Beach Boys, so super excited to have just an episode where we talk about music we love. I'll be talking about one of my favorites, Wild Honey. Christian?
I'm going to be talking about Smiley Smile. It's my favorite.
And Joseph?
The Beach Boys Love You.
I'm in a great mood. Turns out paralegal occupation wasn't for me. I got fired last week. I don't really know why, but I'm kind of happy it happened, to be honest. The 9-to-5 life just wasn't jiving with me, so I had my last day on Friday. Just had an amazing weekend and thought today we'd come out to the beach. At the day, there's some blue coming out. It's a pretty nice day. It's not too cold, so yeah, we just drove out to Rockaway Beach, and here we are, ready to go.
I'm real happy that you're so happy about this new job situation, Jerry. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of the Beach Boys. I'm not too big of a fan of the beach. I don't really know what the appropriate forum is for me to bring this up, but all right, so I wasn't watching the show for a while because I was thinking about my relationship to my ego and whether or not it's important for me to watch myself. And the healthy thing to do was to just speak and not see. But I decided last week that it would be wise for me to take a look at one of our episodes, and I was kind of fucking appalled. You edited out like 75% of everything that I said about Mars Volta Amputecture. That whole diatribe about the different choruses in Tetragrammaton, you didn't think that was sufficiently interesting to be broadcast? I'm only saying this because I'm trying to get myself into a better mood by talking about the Beach Boys, but I have to establish my baseline and let you know that that's where I'm at, and it's fucking cold.
Well, I'm glad you watched the show finally. But yeah, let's keep it positive. This is the 10th episode extravaganza, and we have a special guest, so please keep the personal stuff to yourself. We don't want to scare him off.
I'm sorry, I'm sure you're just going to edit this shit out too.
Let's get right into it with Smiley Smile.
It's kind of complicated talking about Smiley Smile because it simultaneously can put me in a great mood because it's such a great record, but it's also a record of horrible moods. It's kind of a polarizing record in the Beach Boys' history. You probably know about Pet Sounds, which is considered a masterpiece by everybody in the world.
Everyone loves Pet Sounds. We can all agree to that.
Yes.
And Smiley Smile is great too. Contrary to your darkness you just shared about these songs, it is just funny and ironic how it's called Smiley Smile, isn't it?
Well, it was originally not supposed to be called Smiley Smile. It was originally supposed to be called Smile. Brian Wilson had plans for an album that was supposed to be even more ambitious than Pet Sounds. Smile was never made. It fell apart. Instead, they put out Smiley Smile. Because there was so much anticipation built up around Smile, that was supposed to be the greatest record of all time, a lot of people consider Smiley Smile to be a disappointment, and those people are stupid. They're letting themselves be clouded by a dream of what was never there, blinding themselves to what is right in front of their eyes.
Well, okay, may I? It's a different object than Smile ever would have been. It has its own merits. It's a decent album, but the contrast between these massive things like Heroes and Villains and Good Vibrations with Little Pad and what have you as being a little stark, it kind of reminds me of Giving Up in general, which is a kind of a drag. I really like Fall Breaks Back to Winter, the Woody Woodpecker symphony. It's spooky and weird and interesting. She's Going Bald, which is a favorite of mine.
Okay, well, you want to consider allowing me to even give my synopsis of the album before we move on?
I'm sorry.
One more thing. You also just gotta recognize this album has Good Vibrations on it. One of the greatest songs of all time.
This is the most formative album of my life, and I would like to talk about it for an uninterrupted period. You're correct, Joseph, to point out the fact that the album is very disjointed. The songs are all very different from one another, and they do kind of feel like they're from different albums or different headspaces. Fall Breaks and Back to Winter is a good one that you bring up. It's completely instrumental. It's very scary. It has these sounds of boom, boom in the background that sound like an ominous thing is coming to get you. Complete contrast with Good Vibrations, which is, of course, lush and filled with greenery like the album's cover. This disjointed quality shouldn't be seen as a defect in the album. It is the very means by which the album functions. The disjointedness is not only from track to track, but it's within the tracks themselves. The tracks just stop abruptly and switch to these completely different modes. A particularly good example is in Little Pad, where it starts off with this kind of like sing-along vibe of everyone's going around the piano, but then it abruptly switches to this ukulele part, and then it abruptly switches to him singing the verse with this like weird metronome beeping underneath him. And what it does is it creates a feeling of space. First of all, just sonic space, because instruments will cut out. The arrangement is very sparse, but also it creates a sense of place, the place in which the album was made, because the album was recorded at Brian Wilson's home. The original Smile sessions were in a studio.
Not Good Vibrations, not Heroes and Villains.
Okay,
those are made in these big studios.
You're correct about that.
For millions.
Yes. But the other tracks were made in this very intimate environment, and it gives you a sense of the place and the people who were making them, which I think is very essential.
Well, listen, it's undoubtedly a magical album. I think that if you had found this album before any of the other Smile cuts, that it could very well be your favorite version of these tunes. Personally, I heard the Smile sessions. That was kind of my Bible for a number of years, so it's hard for me to go back to this.
I've heard those Smile sessions, and they sound to me completely devoid of life.
You're both making some interesting points here. And Joseph, you mentioned Good Vibrations and Heroes and Villains are big studio tracks, and you also mentioned they don't really fit in for you.
To be honest with you, I think the vibe of this album would be better if the actual song material was different, which is why I prefer albums like Friends to this. Friends has a similar small productions, lo-fi, homemade, but they aren't replications of these giant studio pieces. I think I would like the vibe of this album more if the actual songwriting was all stuff like She's Going Bald and Little Pad, and they weren't also trying to do wonderful.
I kind of think you can have both, and I'm kind of with Christian on this. I think it's a great album.
I mean, I
love
think
the
it's a
big
great album
songs.
too.
I love the little
album.
songs. I think it's a really cool lo-fi album, and I also feel like it's a footprint in the sand for future artists as well. Very Daniel Johnston vibe on this album.
Sure.
I think it's really interesting to hear you say that wonderful sounds like a more ambitious thing with the ambition taken away, like an unfulfilled promise. Because for me, the beautiful thing about wonderful is that melody. That melody is incomparable, and it's given so much space to be a pure melody. Muffled with all these other production elements, I just don't think it could possibly have the same impact.
On the original version of Wonderful, the second verse has these backup vocals that do a little yodel-a hee-hoo buried in there. And it's among my favorite Beach Boys moments of all time. It's very, very beautiful. The harmonies in Wonderful that aren't on Smiley Smile.
I could see it being beautiful. I would be surprised if it gave me the same sense of fear.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't. This version is the fearful one. And I will say, of the Smile songs, Wonderful is my favorite on Smiley Smile. Vegetables, I really feel let down by.
Vegetables is a super funny song, just talking about carrots and celery and stuff. I love that song. This album, I think it's really good. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, but I would give it a very strong 9 out of 10 for me.
I also don't think it's a perfect album, even as much as I love it, and I think it's partly because it doesn't have an ending, or a satisfying ending. Whistle In is the weakest track.
It's very upsetting to me.
And
Whistle In is
upsetting.
upsetting.
Whistle In, it just peters out with a whisper, and it makes me really sad. I would give Smiley Smile a 9.6 out of 10.
I would never give an album a number. I think that's terrible. I like this album quite a bit. It's by one of my favorite bands, but I would never give it a number. I think that's a bad practice. So shame on you and anyone who does that. I think music and art is a beautiful thing. You shouldn't quantify it that way.
If you were working for Pitchfork, what number would you give it?
I would never work for Pitchfork.
You're on our show. What number are you going to give it?
I told you that's the first thing I said. I'm not going to give a number.
We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
You don't have to give it a number, but you are kind of breaking our practices.
Okay, I would give it something above a 6 and below a 9.
Okay, that's a good range. Let's get right into Wild Honey. This album is one of my favorite Beach Boys albums. Just look at the cover, beautiful stained glass. This album came out a mere few months after Smiley Smile, and it's just quite jarring how different they really are. This album is more like a Beach Boys Motown album. The songs are so danceable, it's crazy. You get right into it with Wild Honey, and it's just such a jam. It's like off the charts. And then all the songs are just really good, and the whole thing comes in at under 25 minutes long, which makes it kind of a frustrating album to put on the record player because you have to get up every 12 minutes to change it, and it's not really good value. But I love short albums that you can just listen to in the span of, like an episode of TV. You can listen to a whole Beach Boys album, so for that reason, it's a tremendous album.
Glad you brought up the album cover. I think the 3 albums we chose are among the Beach Boys' best covers. I do want to push back a little on the R&B Motown flavor. I think is some of the weakest Beach Boys modes. They're a great vocal group. I don't know that I think Carl Wilson is the R&B singer of his generation.
Of course he's not, but he does a great job.
He does an all right job. I think that's what holds this album back for me the most. I think the songs that aren't the R&B songs, Aren't You Glad, Country Air, A Thing or Two. Darlin' is my favorite rock and roll R&B song on this album. I think that's a very nice song. I think I never need to hear How She Boogalooed.
That one goes over my head a bit, but Aren't You Glad? Tremendous song.
I'd love Just Once to See You. It's the only song with Brian Wilson on vocal and just an acoustic guitar. No arrangement. It's very rare to hear Brian sing over such a sparse track.
One of my favorites is Here Comes the Night as well, which is just such a dance song, and they knew it because in the late 70s they reissued it as a disco single. I love that song. What are your thoughts, Christian?
I like this album a lot. It's interesting as a contrast to Smiley Smile because it sounds the same. It was also a home recording, but it doesn't have that disjointed quality. It's like if you took the sound of Smiley Smile, but you took away the frightening elements. If you want to go for this mode, but you want something challenging, take Smiley Smile. If you want to go for this mode, but you just want to listen to songs, listen to Wild Honey.
Yes, I think that Friends takes this even a step further, makes it a little happier. This album is a bit of a more downtrodden vibe.
I'm also in agreement with you broadly that the guitar rock songs are the less interesting ones, and I have similar picks for my favorites. Aren't You Glad, Country Air, I'd Love Just Once to See You. Yes. Those are fantastic, satisfying songs. And we were listening to it earlier, that combination of low notes on the piano with the bass guitar and the drums, it makes the sound feel cavernous, especially in Country Air. Between the vocals and the rest of the instrumental, it feels like there's this enormous chasm that you could fall right into. It's an incredible sound.
I can't believe you said this was a downtrodden album. This album is just so full of life and joy.
I think it might very well be colored by my meta knowledge of the band itself. It's hard for me not to contextualize it in that way a little bit.
Viewers out there, like, you put this on, you're gonna feel good. I just want that to be very
broadly
clear.
True of the Beach Boys.
We recommend not learning the backstory so that it doesn't taint your listening experience.
You can watch the movie with John Cusack and
Paul Dano. Really, you should watch Beautiful Dreamer, the documentary from 2004. That's the best documentary on Brian Wilson. It was made by
But if
David
you want to
Wolf.
watch a fictional biopic, if you're into those, maybe you like Walk the Line, and maybe No Direction Home. No, Falling Stone. No. The Bob Dylan movie. What's that called?
Complete Unknown.
A Complete Unknown. Maybe you like that. You want to check out what Bob Dylan's contemporaries were doing. Check out Love and Mercy, I believe it's called.
That's what it's called.
So, yeah, Wild Honey. This album is really good. I think I'd give it a 10. Why not?
Wow.
I'll give it a 10.
Wow.
It's perfect.
It's as good as Pet Sounds?
Pet Sounds is better, but Wild Honey's a 10 as well. Pet Sounds I'll give a 10 for sure. Shout out to Pet Sounds. A 10 out of 10 album. Number 2 on the Rolling Stone 500 Best Albums list. So shout out to Pet Sounds. Make it number 1 next time, please.
Ranking albums. Really, what's worse?
I was surprised listening to Wild Honey again, how much it held up for me. I'm feeling kind of sad that I hadn't listened to it for like a decade. I'd give it an 8.9. There are a couple weak tracks. Overall, it's pretty nifty.
I think Pretty much most of the Beach Boys albums from this period are pretty good and enjoyable listens. I like it slightly less than Smiley Smile. It doesn't rank in my top 5 Beach Boys albums, but it is a really enjoyable, fun, lighthearted kind of snack of an album. I am refusing to give it a number.
All right, let's get into the Beach Boys' Love You.
Now we're into the real outsider art element of the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson is a very weird person. Brian was always weird. People like to say he got weird because of the drugs, but you can find the earliest interviews of this man, and he says strange, idiosyncratic, weird, silly things. He's got a great sense of humor. He went through many years of a lot of intense hardship, mentally, psychically, spiritually. The man suffered quite a lot. And there was a period where Dennis Wilson was saying, "My boy Brian is gone. I can't even communicate with him." They thought he was so spaced out that he would never return. So this period of Brian is kind of his return to the foreground, having absorbed all those years of crazy. The sound of this album, there's really nothing like it. It's so idiosyncratic that when I hear other music using synthesizers this way, I go, oh, it kind of has a Love You vibe. It was a complete flash in the pan. As soon as it was done, they never returned to this sound ever. They really let Brian do whatever he wanted, and he had a lot of crazy ideas. The album cover I want to mention was designed by, I think...
Love the cover.
It's a great cover.
I love the cover.
It was designed to be like a Navajo rug, but it kind of ends up looking like 8-bit pixel art, even though it's, ahead of its time. They didn't even have arcades in 77.
Very ahead of its time. You got Pong, maybe, but you don't have Pokemon or Zelda or Pac-Man yet. I really don't see anything Navajo about it. It looks more like an embroidered pillow that maybe Brian Wilson's grandmother made him.
He originally wanted it to be called Brian Loves You.
That would have been much better. Wasn't it meant to be a solo album?
It kind of is. I mean, I've heard some people call this as kind of a Wilson Brothers album because there is a lot of Carl and Dennis. There's a little bit of Mike, but Brian does all the instrumentation. He's recorded all those synths and snare drums by himself. He also wrote the lyrics on this album, which famously Brian Wilson doesn't really write lyrics. He had a lyricist for Pet Sounds, a lyricist for Smile. Mike Love was his big lyricist.
Listening to this, you can kind of see why he didn't always write lyrics, which isn't even to say that they're bad, but just that they're strange and oftentimes off-putting.
Pretty much all the songs are about the most simple, like, little kid subjects. The second song's about a girl with roller skates.
A lot of people bring that up as being kind of a pedophilic vibe. The verse is very clearly about a child, and the chorus is about making sweet love while their mother is away.
Oh, I didn't catch that. The lyrics could definitely be seen as creepy, but the lyrics are so kind of dumb. They're childish, and I really just get the sense Brian Wilson has never developed into an adult. Kind of like Michael Jackson or Daniel Johnston. He got famous too young and never developed his brain. One of the lyrics sums it up entirely. If Mars had life on it, I might find a wife on it. Just what a fucking idiotic lyrics. Yeah, we got a lot of songs about very childish subjects. One of the songs is called Ding Dang, something like that. Ding Dang Doodle Dang. It's like a minute long.
That song has a lot of history behind it. It's a big story.
Well, I don't know it.
Another element to this album is the fact that their voices are all ruined by drugs. You listen to the Beach Boys in the 60s, golden, perfect, smooth voices. Dennis Wilson on I'll Bet He's Nice, very gravelly.
I wonder to what degree the Wilson brothers were consciously using the gravelly qualities of their voice.
I've heard it was deliberate.
A track like Love is a Woman, it really feels like he knows how to lean into that love is. That's one of my absolute highlights. What are the highlights?
Honking Down the Highway.
Honking Down the Highway is, I love that
How is that the lead
song.
single? That kind of sums up my issue with this album. I like it as a whole, but there's no good vibrations. If there was an amazing single on this, I think it would be like an out-of-this-world crazy
I think The Night
good
Was
album.
So Young has the potential of being a standard and a pop single that was a hit. I think it had the potential.
Was Mona the other single? That's
But
a pretty disappointing song. I think,
I like Mona.
for
It's
me
crazy.
personally, the opening of the album is really weak.
I like it. It's so weird.
No.
And the snare is huge. And then those harmonies, That sounds like classic Beach Boys.
Roller Skating Child, I can't get into.
Yeah, that's a
Mona
weaker
is
one.
repetitive and just doesn't land.
Uh-huh.
It's the first track that really gets me going is Johnny Carson.
Mona was just like, this feels like karaoke with the
I feel
Beach
like
Boys
Mona
or
is a
something.
grower. Mona, I didn't like it at first. I like it a lot now, and I don't really know why.
Well, I love Johnny Carson. It sounds so off kilter. Johnny.
Hey guys, what about that
Carson.
outro and I Want to Pick You Up? Pat, pat, pat her on her butt. That shit is weird, man. But it also intrigued me. And that's another thing about this album is it's kind of a moth light for the element of the Brian Wilson story that is this guy is like a cracked, broken genius. It makes you want to dive into the schizophrenia of it all.
Well, I think the other thing about it, though, is that if you were purely just crazy, it wouldn't work. But he still has an element of control, and you can still tell he's making
a
very
musical
deliberate,
genius.
creative choices.
Yes.
But that's what I'm talking when I go back to the riding the line of how sincere is he in love as a woman? Because is he really...
Brian Wilson's hella charming in the 60s. But this is like 10 years later, and he's still on the same subjects of having a baby, being in love with girls, and it doesn't sit right with me.
I just want a spotlight. I'll Bet He's Nice. That's my favorite song on the album. I love that little bum 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 synth part. The Pretty Darlin' part, I think that's like a shitty melody. You pretty darling. It's such a shitty melody, but then the stuff that's going on underneath it. There's like a little bluesy line that goes on underneath it, that contrast, and just it takes something that's dull and makes it just a little bit off in that way that you want music to do.
I find this album so fascinating, and as a result, it's something that I kind of reference a lot. They're among my favorite Beach Boys songs. Honkin' Down the Highway is a personal favorite.
I
Night
don't
Was
know
So Young,
what.
as I mentioned.
That song has nothing good about it. It's just
I
stupid.
fully disagree.
It
I love
reminded
so
me
many
of
things
the
about that
movie
song.
Cars. Well, the Beach Boys love you. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's only been a day since I've heard it. At the moment, I think I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Maybe it'll grow on me, though, and it'll jump up in the ratings. But at the moment, I don't think there's nothing too special about it. It's definitely unique, but I don't know if I like it yet. So I'll give it a 7.
I'm so cold. The Beach Boys music is reminding me that life is worth living. I appreciate Love You a lot, and it has dazzling moments. It's not a go-to kind of album, and it doesn't have that same feeling of space that Wild Honey and Smiley Smile has. I would call it a much more two-dimensional album, which oddly enough fits with like the pixelated looking cover. I'd give it like an 8.
I love this album. It's one of my favorite Beach Boys albums. It has a real thick, strong punk rock quality to it that not a lot of Beach Boys music has, and it pulls it off. Yeah, I love it front to back. I don't do numbers, but I would say it's in the classic range.
That's a 10 out of 10 from Joseph, I think.
Essentially.
10 out of 10.
Thank you very much for having me on this program.
Thanks for coming, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. This has been the very special 10th episode anniversary of Diskogs Presents. I hope you enjoyed. See you next week.